What could possibly be better than Anne Rice returning to Toronto for the first time in 10 years? I'll tell you what could be better. Anne Rice returning to Toronto while she is returning to the Gothic. The old dark house, the mysterious family secrets, the ancient forest shrouded in mist, the monster as hero. A story of transformation told through the lens of the supernatural. And woven through it all, profound questions about the nature of life, the wisdom of Teilhard de Chardin, and believe it or not, the beauty of the Bose stereo sound system. A mashup of ancient truth and the modern world in a book to be published tomorrow. What a pleasure it is to say hello and welcome back to Anne Rice. Come on up. Welcome.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
You have said writing this book was a complete joy.
It was.
For you.
Yeah, it
was. Tell me what it was like.
Well, it was first and foremost exhilarating. It was fun. It was fun to do it. It started as an experiment to let me see what I could do with the werewolf, where I could go with that theme. And I put aside everything that I'd been working on. I just thought, okay, I'm going to try this and see where I can go with it. And the miracle happened. The old cliche happened. The characters came to life. Reuben started talking to Marchant, the two people that introduced the novel, the hero, Reuben Golding, and this mysterious woman that he meets, Marchant Nidek. And I started to hear his voice. I started to know who he was, and I was off and running. And pretty soon, I was really rolling with it. I was getting out of bed every morning wanting to know what was going to happen.
So did I. So will everybody. I'm going to ask a quick question about sound. We have switched seats. Are we okay sound-wise? We did do that, and I think we...
Well, we can switch.
Are we okay? You want us to switch? So every time you see the word wolf in popular culture, I think, it is twinned with the word curse. Right. So you have the curse of the werewolf, the blood curse, there's a film just called Cursed. Your book is called The Wolf Gift.
Right.
Not only is it not a curse for you, you have taken what in culture has been thought to be one of the most foul curses imaginable,
right,
and re-envisioned it as a gift. Tell me about your thinking.
Well, I wanted to pursue the idea that it was a gift, that undergoing this transformation, getting this extraordinary power would be very exhilarating and wonderful if you were conscious all the way through it, and if you could control what you did when you were under the influence of the transformation. So I saw it as a gift right from the beginning. It was a gift to me as a writer. It was a gift to Reuben because it was happening to him. And I felt like I was going through that with him. And I did remember that in the movie Wolf with Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer, somebody does refer to it as a gift. So I went back and I looked at that movie, and I also looked at a number of other movies, and I found that it was mentioned often as a gift, but it usually turns out to be quite a curse by the end of the movie, or a total break with everything, all normality, you know, as the beast goes off into the forest.
That's right, no element of consciousness remains.
Not by the end. As a matter of fact, in some films, it's strictly a transition period that's interesting. By the end, the monster's totally a beast and is, of course, killed by a silver bullet or escapes into the forest, but it's that transition period that's so fascinating. And I thought, well, I want that to be the whole thing for Reuben. I want him to undergo this transformation, be completely conscious, know what he's doing, enjoy this, what I thought would be incredibly pleasurable, to feel this increase in strength and power, this new dimension, and be able to talk about it and think about it and explore it. You know?
One of the things that's so intriguing here is that it's not just a physical change. So after Reuben has gone through the transformation a couple of times, he's a man, he's in his human form, goes into a bar, and for the first time in his life, could not care less what the bartender thinks of him. Total absence of self-consciousness.
Right.
Did you end up thinking we could all be better off with just a hint of the wolf in us?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, oftentimes as a woman, I've explored what it would feel like to be a vampire, to be the thing that people were afraid of, instead of the person who was afraid. Years ago, I used to have to walk across this dark stretch of park in San Francisco to get home from night school, I lived in the Haight-Ashbury and I had to walk across the Panhandle, and I would imagine that I was very frightening, that anybody who ran into me was going to meet with disaster. That was the only way I could get across that park. You know, and I weighed about 98 pounds at the time. You know, there's nothing frightening about me at all, but I just remembered that. I've often thought of that when writing scenes with my vampires, you know, what it must feel like to move through the dark and be afraid of nothing and nobody.
So do you think there is power in just setting your mind to that kind of bearing?
Oh, sure.
By God, I weigh 98 pounds, but look out, world.
Look out, world.
Do you move differently through the world when you have that in your mind? I'm invincible, I'm tough.
I move through the pages when I have that in my mind. I don't really get out into the world. I go back to being Anne Rice, you know, shaking. Yeah. But one of the great thrills of writing is to be these powerful characters, you know.
In fiction, so often in fiction, when a human being turns into a beast, what the novelist is playing with is the good qualities are all in the human being and the beastly qualities are all in the beast. And you have mixed that up a little bit too. Can you tell us a bit about finding the nobility in the beast and finding the beauty and the primal strength and just what qualities are there in the beast? You haven't said, you know, 2 legs good, 4 legs bad. It's quite a bit more complex here.
No, I felt that there would be wonderful aspects to being able to act as swiftly as Reuben can act when he's the man-wolf. And I felt there would be wonderful aspects to thinking about it later, what it's like to give in to that. I mean, to act with the conviction of a beast. And he feels that. He does. He goes and intervenes in a rape. He gets the rapist and kills him. And stops the crime, and he doesn't hesitate to kill the guy because his instincts are telling him this person's consummately evil. And he does this again and again.
Right?
Yes,
he's smelling
he can pick
evil.
Up the scent of it, and he can hear when people are distressed and so forth. And yet there's a conscious person there who knows that this is a power to which nobody's really entitled. You know, to play God like this is wrong. But I've been playing with that theme, I think, all my life, really, in the vampire novels I've written, in the Mayfair Witch novels, even in the novel I wrote, Ramses the Damned, about the mummy. What is the burden of having that kind of strength, that kind of power, that ability to act almost outside of time, but then have a great longing to have a place within time and within the human framework? I mean, one of the things that I always get back to in my vampire novels is that they would all really rather be human beings again. At least they think they would.
And that's not necessarily the case here, I think, with Reuben. By the end of the story, and I want to be very mindful of spoilers here, so forget that. Never mind. We're just going to move right along. That verged on something really, you know, an interviewer should never do.
He's not regretful from the beginning. As much as I was inspired by Lon Chaney and the old wolf.
Yes.
No, that's not Reuben. But he's not crying out in agony.
You had a bit of fun with that because, you know, there's a line, I still remember, it's something like somebody has reported a crime and, you know, the police and the press are just at their wits' end. They're saying, this woman thinks she's been saved by a combination of Lon Chaney and the abominable snowman. Like, what is...
Exactly.
So you had a bit of fun with the motifs.
Well, I did. I mean, I wanted to make this, you know, I think to write good supernatural fiction, for me, to attempt to write it, is really to make it so believable that completely rational people will come up to me and say, I don't know how you did it, you made me sympathize with a vampire. You know, how did you do that? But the way to do that is to put them right into the context of life. And you know, don't put them off in some foggy, abstracted place, but put them right in the middle of a city. How do you deal with this kind of strength and power right in the middle of San Francisco when you don't know for sure when you're going to change back?
That poses some problems.
Right. The first time Reuben changes, he doesn't know when it's going to leave him, and he takes pictures with his iPhone to, you know, and when he wakes up, he's fully prepared to see a normal Reuben in those pictures, you know, to think this was
with a blank screen,
brain.
Nothing there.
And he emailed that to his computer, and he looks at, and there's the man-wolf, you know. So he's got to deal with it right there in that context, with mom and dad downstairs.
Literally, at some point.
Literally downstairs.
The house in this book is practically a character unto itself. Beautiful old mansion, very isolated, nestled on one side by the roaring, pounding ocean, nestled on the other side by ancient redwood forest. And there are loving descriptions in here of the original William Morris wallpaper and hidden nooks and massive fireplace. Why is that sense of place so important to you?
You know, I honestly don't know. All my life I have loved houses, and I have loved books about houses. I mean, the first two novels I ever really read were Jane Eyre and Great Expectations. And Rochester's house is so important in Jane Eyre. And in Great Expectations, you have Miss Havisham's house, and Miss Havisham, the woman who's rotting away in her bridal dress.
Yes.
You know, and I don't know whether that did it or whether I was already a child who was just in love with houses when I read those books. But I've owned many wonderful houses in my life. Houses I thought I would never leave. And I have left them all. And I have a beautiful burning memories of those houses, things about them. And I put all of that into the creation of this house for Reuben. I built this house for these characters out of the boards and the stone and the memories of all those houses in which I've lived that I've loved so much.
People are going to be coveting wildly, you know. This house is an enviable location. So this is also a real life thing for you. This is not just a trick of the fiction writer to make something be cozy and warm and splendid. You've lived this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in New Orleans, I lived in a house that was 150 years old. And I wrote about it in the book The Witching Hour, and in a couple of other books after that. And I moved into that house when I was writing The Witching Hour, and I made it the Witching Hour house of the Mayfair witches. They lived there. And that was a wonderful experience. I was in that house maybe 15 years, and I never thought I would leave it. I thought it would fall down around me and I would die in that house. I even said I wanted to be buried from the living room of this house. I don't want to go to any funeral parlor. And but a time came when it was time to leave, when that was over for me and I had to go. But I grieve for that house. I miss it. But there's always been this relationship between my love of houses and my love of the way they function in literature. And this must be so for many other authors, so we wouldn't have so many unbelievable houses in the fiction that we love.
But this takes its place alongside them, I think.
Well, I hope so, yeah.
I was reading a blog about books the other day, and the writer says, okay, I'm 33 years old, so I really shouldn't be using the expression, back in my day. But you know what? Back in my day, vampires didn't sparkle. So my question is, when you behold a sparkly vampire on the page, a vegetarian sparkly vampire at that, is that okay?
Sure, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Yeah. My vampires are envious because they cannot walk around in the day, so they don't know whether they'll sparkle in the sun. They're completely respecting of anybody with that power. If you can sparkle, go to it.
I think, and that's very gracious. That is very gracious. I think the way this plays out online often is that it gets us into a larger question, that the question of, are certain things sacred when it comes to storytelling and the supernatural? Does tradition exist for a good reason? Is it okay to blow it apart? Are you partial to tradition being there for a reason? And quite apart from sparkly vampires.
Well, I've always played with it. I mean, from the beginning, I took what interested me, what excited me about vampires. I didn't even know really that it was Hollywood that invented the idea that vampires would burn up in the sun. That's actually a Hollywood movie idea. It's not in Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it's not in Sheridan Le Fanu's Camilla. It's not in the old literature. I didn't know it. So I just took it right into the Vampire Chronicles when I wrote the books. But I did away with other things. I felt that the magic of garlic or crucifixes would so limit the metaphysics of the novel that I didn't want to have that kind of a clear sign of any meaningful framework for what was happening. I didn't want that magic element.
Yes.
I wanted my vampires to be moving around in space. They can't go through keyholes of smoke. They can't change into animals. So I think all authors do this. You pick and choose what really works for you. What worked for me was that the vampire was an old world romantic figure. And that's what I made my vampires into. Very glamorous, old world figures, you know, French speaking, European.
Yes. Debonair.
Right.
Charming.
And, exactly. and that mattered a lot. Now, obviously, Charlene Harris and Stephanie Meyer and a lot of different authors are doing something completely different now. And it's no surprise. I mean, the vampire concept is so rich. It's no surprise that there are all these different things you can do with it. It never occurred to me to create a vampire that went to high school. I mean, just didn't think I would do that if I were a vampire. I would just spend 20 minutes in high school. But, you know, that was a work of genius. For the author of the Vampire Diaries and for Stephanie Meyer, that was genius, because that's just what readers wanted, was to think the guy in biology class was a vampire. But I have only respect for that. That's a great way to do it.
Before we move on, my daughter is 15. She's now reading Bram Stoker's Dracula. Next, she's moving on to your vampire novels, and she says, that's blasphemous that they sparkle in the sun. So, you know, from the young generation, a vote for the old time. As a reader, I think one of the great pleasures is sometimes figuring out things before the people in the novel have figured things out. So, not to give too much away again, in The Wolf Gift, someone is bitten by some kind of beast fairly early on, and he's in the hospital to see what's going on. And suddenly his hair is getting long and luxuriant, and he's feeling a little stronger. And the tests they run at the hospital are showing an enormous amount of human growth hormone in his system. And one of the doctors says, well, you're just 23 years old. I guess it could still be a growth spurt. And the reader is thinking, get a clue, the guy's a werewolf. Is that as much fun to write as it is to read?
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, it was. Well, I was trying to get some scientific context there of what this transformation was about, and I was calling my doctor friends and asking them these questions, you know, and they gave me that terminology that's used later, pluripotent cells, whatever. I can't pronounce the words, but I wrote them in there. These cells are affected by the hormones, and I ended up by saying it's a hormonal process.
Yes.
You know, he's flooded with these hormones, this happens, and then they
But with enough plenipotentiary cells, you get bitten and you're off to the races, sort of thing. It felt plausible.
Well, you know, that's what I enjoy more. If I'm reading a novel, I need some kind of plausible context to see the monster, the supernatural being in. I don't like it if there are no rules at all. If there's just no logic to what's happening at all, it's harder for me to get into that world, you know, suspend disbelief. But I can't go too far with it, because this is a classic supernatural monster. It's not happening in the real world. At least not yet.
The title Queen of Facebook attached itself to you fairly early on. Yes, it did.
I did not know that.
Did. And here's a comment about the community that lives through your Facebook page. Someone writes, speaking as one of the old and original people of the page, this page rocks. You can discuss sex, religion, and politics in one breath. After being all nice and PC at work and on your own page, this is a page where you can let your hair down and really chew the fat with interesting people from all over the world. And it's as if we all meet up in Anne Rice's sitting room to do so. I'm intrigued that someone picks up on the unbridled nature of the conversation. Whatever is on your mind, you bring to this page, and you talk.
We do.
Why is there such a hunger for that kind of, you will not be censored, you will not be, you know, these are not the parameters, just come and speak?
Well, I tell you, it's not entirely without parameters. You know, we really get into discussions. If someone just completely disrupts, you know, they will go off the page. You know, they'll be reported by enough people that they'll go off even before I get there to report them. But we do want a vigorous conversation, and every now and then somebody will insist that we ban the people that disagree with us. And I say, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. We cannot just ban people who disagree. We want to see both sides of the issues. At the same time, it is a personal page, and I am an advocate for certain causes. So I do not post a lot of different articles that reflect the other side of the issues. I want to discuss the side of the substantive articles that we do talk about, but I'm not necessarily going to post something that I don't agree with at all. So, there are those limits.
So when this guy says, here I have to be politically correct at work all day, and yahoo, yay for Anne Rice's Facebook page, because finally I can speak my mind, does it feel like, apart from the decorum and getting the yahoos off, does it feel like a space where
you can say what you might not want to say at work. Yes, you
like
can
what's
say
on your mind,
and you can talk about things that maybe nobody wants to hear about anyplace else. I mean, this is important. I mean, like I drive people around me insane with my obsessive questions. Like, do you really believe that there is a devil, a literal devil, or do you think evil is something inside of us? Well, I'll drive everybody in the family nuts if I keep talking about that. They just get so their eyes are rolling like, well, it's hot outside, isn't it? Maybe we should go to a movie, get Anne off the subject. But I go on the page and I ask that question and I get 1,000 answers.
Yes.
And we discuss that all day. What do we think evil is? What's the origin of evil? How do we define evil? What do we really believe about evil? What do we really believe about where we're going after we die?
Now, do you come to answers to some of those questions on your own?
I talk back and forth with people all the time. I post, and of course they can post their questions. I mean, it's Anne Rice or everyone else. You can click on either one. You click on everyone else and you get all the different posts and questions that they're bringing to the wall. And I go through every day, several times a day, and answer as many of those questions as I can, and any one of those posts and answers can become a thread, a discussion thread. So we have quite a lot going on all the time.
But apart from the mechanics of how it works, have you come to your own place of peace about, is there an actual devil? What is evil? Are those unanswerable in your mind, or are you moving towards what you feel
I have tentative conclusions. I always do. And I always want to have the courage to change my mind when I know I've made a mistake. And I don't, as a matter of fact, believe there is a literal devil. I think evil is something, like Teilhard de Chardin says, evil is the inevitable result of a system that's evolving in time. And I think that covers just about every kind of evil I can imagine.
Well, this comes up so often in The Wolf Gift, to take you back to the novel for a second. And Teilhard de Chardin comes up a lot, which is quite, this is delightful to see supernatural fiction with a renowned Jesuit theologian, paleontologist working through the pages.
Right. And he can't complain because he's gone, so.
Well, that's right, but I'm not sure he would have complained.
Right.
You seem to have an affection for him and for his thinking.
I do, but I can't claim to really be a Teilhard scholar. He's a very dense, difficult theologian to read, but he's written beautiful theology. And for a person like me, where I am in my own spiritual journey, he gives me great hope. Because he was a theologian that really loved the earth, the cosmos, the unfolding evolution of the universe as we see it. He loved science, and he saw no conflict between faith in God and science, but he saw the maker of the universe as having created this marvelous, this magnificent system. And he loved, delving deep into evolutionary paleontology, archaeology, and so forth. And that gives me great hope, because this is what I feel too. This is what I believe. So it's sort of like I guess you find the theologian who says beautifully what you really believe, what you hope is true.